Welcome back, Patreon subscribers and hard warriors. This is Jona Bryndis with your weekly energy tips as your preferred content or as part of your Hard Warrior program. If you have just watched the energy update for the week 43, 20th till 26th of October, then you know what the basic themes are. So let's repeat this here real quick. We're having aspects that have to do with the forces of control, and in the energy update I described or explained how this is meant. So the forces of control that we're going to be exposed to this next week are triggering our emotionality. So there's a lot of aggressiveness, destructiveness, and even grief and loss here in the air. So it can get really intense. This is why the energy barometer is on red for next week. It means that there's going to be big emotions. Now, whether or not you're going to be controlled by this has a lot to do with your personal energy management and how you can, sort of contextualize and discern what is going on, what is yours and what isn't, what you need to react to and what you don't need to react to. And in other words, working on your responsiveness, on your self-responsibility. Okay, so the main themes here for this next week are destructiveness, responsibility, the control of knowledge and information, consolidation, discernment of truth, and seeing the larger picture. And the energy centers within you that are going to be challenged the most are going to be your first and your second in combination with another. So whenever you see me do this slash in between chakras, it means that they interact with another. And first and second chakra have to do with inner child, karmic family, and really deep-seated trauma or unhealed stuff that influences the entire course of our life. So what we call in energy work karmic attachments. All right, and then third and fourth chakra, again here there's a slash between the two of them, which means they come in conjunction with another, and it means that there's a learning task, that there is a task here, to evolve out of our force into our power. So third chakra, your solar plexus, is where your willpower, but also your ego and your mentalism and all that is located. And fourth chakra is your heart. This is your expansiveness, this is your true power. And all of this moves into, your sixth chakra, wants to connect with your sixth chakra. Your sixth chakra is your inner mind's eye, okay, or your third eye, as many call it, okay, is seeing the larger picture, really, sort of moving away from just seeing ourselves, from this sort of individuated or self-centered view that we can have sometimes. Okay, so these are quite big tasks here, and as I've mentioned in the October forecast, this isn't going to go smoothly. However, for those of us who can see this as a prompting from our true self, from our sort of soul aspect, okay, that is reminding us of why we came here in the first place. For you guys, this can be really, really healing. But regard next week sort of as the, the pinnacle of this tension and of escalation, okay, big emotions. So let's have a look how this may play out here on these different levels of existence, okay, so collectively or planetary. You know this. The energy update is it's a bit of a forecast, but it is mainly just reflecting on the energetic weather conditions that we're having, which means that these things that I'm pointing out for you are not necessarily affecting you. That is, though, and being an empath and an energetically sensitive, relatively, there's a relatively high chance, that you're going to feel this in one way or another. And we're going to look at these different ways you may feel this. And so by me kind of anticipating this for you and giving you the context of all of this and formulating energy tips for you, you may be able to better discern and also learn from that experience, okay? Not just sort of feel powerless or feel at, being a subject, to collective energies. Collective energies are always there, guys. It's just like germs. It's just like, weather. It's always there and it will always affect you. But how you actually deal with it depends on how present you can stay and, how well you can train yourself. Sometimes it's really just common sense, to respond. And overall, for us as energetically sensitives, this theme of becoming more responsive rather than being reactive, that's something that you can see every day. You're going to see this in traffic. You're going to see this at the grocery store. You're going to see this amongst your friends or your family. And I pointed out, especially with your kids this week, that when people are not aware of these weather conditions, they tend to react. Okay, so it doesn't mean that you have to suck everything up and just sort of go into this, I know what this is, those are just collective energies and so forth. So don't use this to become all aloof about it, because it will still affect your energy. Instead, use these energy tips to reflect on things. So collectively, meaning, on the socio-economical and political, sort of planetary or global level, you're going to see a lot of confrontation. You're going to see direct confrontation and aggressiveness and sheer destructiveness, okay? We live in times where the main power is in who can control information and knowledge. It used to be, that, and I've alluded to this in the public energy update, that esotericism, a handful of chosen people would decide, what kind of information is suitable for the public, or, then in the 19th and 20th and 21st century, propaganda. So governments started to control information. But we are now in a time where, information is abundantly available, but really only 5% of what is out there is actually true. And so you're going to probably see this very clearly if you have this ability to zoom out, and see where your attention is being diverted and distracted into these individuals, these archetypes, okay, these archetypal conflicts. You're going to see this. It's the celebrities, it's the extremely violent cases, it's it's all the stuff that emotionalizes and polarizes people that you're going to get distracted into. For what purpose? For the sole purpose of you actually not seeing the larger picture. Things are hiding in plain sight, guys. They're not actually hiding, It's not that hard to understand what, these power structures here that we commonly, refer to as whatever, the powers to be or the matrix, what the agenda is. The agenda is to own, sort of the tool that can manipulate your mind and your emotions into going where this controlling entity wants you to go. It's not always to your disadvantage, but wouldn't it be nice to be in self-control, But in order to move into the self-responsibility, we have to be able to respond. We have to be able to see that we have a choice. Reactiveness does not come with a choice, guys. And so, to be self-responsible, to be in self-control, it means that we're going to have to learn some of these tools of control, and also learn to withstand from the temptation of misusing this control. Okay? So this is this conflict here between our third and our fourth chakra, especially those of you who are already familiar with some of the spiritual or new age or energetic toolbox, so to speak. You know, you can see that there are some really cool things that allow you, you know, to deal with things differently, and it can make you feel a lot more grounded, a lot more stable, you know, than you know, sort of this collective insanity that we are experiencing or witnessing around us right now. But you must not misuse it for power. So this is where the third and the fourth chakra is what I call a collective barrier of perception, where that is part of our sort of evolutionary karmic task, okay, to understand that it's not about winning, it's not about being better, it's not about, you know, sort of having an edge on others. It's actually about synergy and collaboration. So we've got to find the middle ground between wanting to individuate and wanting to express ourselves as true selves, as authentic selves, you know, and really go into self-actualization, while at the same time understanding that we are part of the greater whole, you know, that we are, you know, actually never really separated from another. And this is here is sort of this you know, transformation or global awakening or whatever that we're experiencing right now. This is leading us to there. And you know, I mentioned this in the October forecast. October is quite pivotal here for that, because everything that we on a personal level can sort of transcend or heal or find new approaches for, or that we can correct, will have extremely positive results in the future. It's a little bit about sort of hanging in there, but politically I wouldn't put my hopes up too much. The general consensus here is, you know, that it's going to have to get a little worse before it can get better, because the human ego, and we're collectively we're still controlled, you know, roughly by 85% people out there that are in their ego reactiveness. The human ego is not willing to change until the pain of staying where you're at becomes so big, you know, that it can really outweigh the fear of the unknown. And, you know, in my previous publications and, you know, all these outlets such as workshops and webinars and transmissions and so forth, you'll hear me talk about this a lot, you know, that the ego or the ego's function is to keep us safe, is to, you know, allow us to cope. But it is not there, and this is the really the big thing to understand, to make us happy, to make us feel fulfilled. So we are witnessing, you know, this our whole entire human collective currently, you know, transcending ego. And those of you who have been in this self-healing and, you know, sort of self-transformation space, you know, for a while, you know, you guys are going to be the guides, you know, in the future, because our children have to learn this from us, you know. They have to learn to liberate themselves from this sort of collective manipulation, if you will. Okay, so be very present and watch this, how this is going to play out this week, especially sort of by the middle of next week. I'm expecting a lot of escalation, but it can already start this weekend. So how's this going to play out for us physically? So many of you guys will have these continued migraines and headaches that I already talked about, often also in conjunction with sinus aspects, you know, like fifth chakra stuff, because it has, seeing truth also has a lot to do with speaking truth, you know, and being willing to accept truth. And this is where many of us still have resistance, you know, in accepting things the way they are. And yet, you know, accepting things the way they are does not mean to suck them up, okay? For example, here I'm predicting that people are going to have a hard time with their chronic pains next week. What does accepting, you know, the way things are, not ignoring them, not coping with them, or popping pain pills, or smoking pot, numbing yourself, and drinking alcohol? No. accepting things the way they are means, to be absolutely clear with yourself that this is not something that you can continue. If you need to numb yourself or stimulate yourself in order to cope with reality, then there is something very, very, unhealed at the core. So dealing with chronic pains means to look at what is my body telling me here. We cannot lie to our bodies, guys. Our bodies are the densest layer of our energy system, and any unresolved, any schismatic or fragmented part of us, that gets sort of tucked away, will or has to go somewhere, and it will in the long run, at the latest sort of minute, manifest in our physical. Okay, so chronic pains, chronic issues are the result of continual repression or resistance to something. So there's specific pains that are linked to specific methodologies, and so resistance pain is often in your joints, is often in arthritis is a very typical resistance syndrome. Okay, this is where we're resisting, to accept something, trying to control it perhaps, and also there's a tinge of anger with this. Gallbladder issues are the same, as well as high blood pressure, things that are sort of collectively accepted as degenerative diseases, but really all they are is the manifestation of us resisting our inner truth. And our inner truth has a lot to do with our inner guidance and this true self-voice, and connecting with our authenticity and not trying to be somebody who we're not. Okay, so you're going to feel a little bit of this here next week, and people with issue, there's a good time to have your teeth fixed. I said this last year, and then again in springtime, and this is like your last correction time here. If you have things that dental work that needs to be done, don't drag this out any longer. Okay, but people will also have issues with their knees and with their feet, so as well as like the nervous system. I talked a lot about this in the past, like how your mindfulness techniques and so forth, it's kind of like a non-brainer, but how meditation and self-care and like learning to read your own energy so that you can feel better what it is that you need. Do I need a nap, or do I need more water? Do I need better food? Those things are self-care and self-love methods, that we all really don't need to be a rocket scientist or a spiritual person to get this. All right, so make sure that when these things come forward to you, that you don't get stressed out, or that you don't go into fear, that you begin to not trust your body anymore, or to reject your body. Okay, so not accepting truth can lead to rejection, and can lead to actually rejecting your physical. And some of us in this week will feel really strongly triggered in that way, that we want to give up on our own body. So understand that as an energetically sensitive, as an empath, you need more clearing, you need more grounding, you need more centering. Okay? Take care of your issues in the now, now. Don't procrastinate. Okay? If you feel tired, sure, I get it. If you're at work and stuff, you can't do this. But if you're tired, then learn how to do mini meditations, how to realign your energy, how to breathe through the heart, how to clear through the heart. Okay, we teach all these things here at transCODES. Emotionally, it's going to be a really tricky week, because this reactiveness and this aggressiveness and right out destructiveness that you're going to feel can lead to intense fear, but also intense anger. Okay, so you may feel this as like this really sudden, uh, one of our heart warriors said, called it the Hulk in him, coming forward. All right, so this plays a little bit into our shadow, but I want to show you the deeper energetic aspects here of that, and that is that, when you run into this fight, flight, or freeze, where perhaps you're afraid of losing something, or perhaps you just lost something, then your ego is in top form. This is what your ego is designed to do, okay? And so anything that you have been carrying around as your sort of story, like, oh, I'm a victim, no matter what I try, it never works, this isn't working, blah, blah, this is, that sort of voice in you, okay, can indicate to you that you are not really dealing with what is at hand. You're just going into your own narrative, okay? So it's really important for you to learn techniques that allow you to breathe through things, such as heart clearing, and to understand that, you came here, to really be part of something greater than you are. So most of us get really stuck in the self-centeredness here, and our own pain and our own suffering. We do self-mastery classes here at transCODES, and one of the things that I mentioned there is that pain is real, suffering is a choice. Okay, so just because we are experiencing pain or fear, for this matter, you can apply this, to other emotional states as well. It doesn't mean that we have to suffer. Okay, that's a choice, and that choice is an unconscious choice that we're making, and you have to get out of that unconscious place where you're choosing to suffer because you keep on reconfirming or reiterating or rehashing your own narrative. Okay, so breathe through it, and perhaps start thinking, in context with seeing the larger picture about taking care of something that is greater than you, like something, even just plants or animals or children volunteering somewhere or something like this can really help you, to resolve some of these deep emotional wounds that have become your blind spots. Okay, mentally, I'm actually expecting myself to get in a lot of trouble next week, because it's all about, this sort of power through knowledge, power through information, power through, or believing that you have power through your own ego story. Okay, so this is where the, the forces of control come in here. We're all going to feel a lot of sort of inner negativity, strong critical inner voices coming forward. And I want you, especially guilt tripping, I want you to feel into this. And, our heart warriors know this. I've already prompted you to do this. Really pay attention to this inner negativity, this inner critic, and try to identify where these voices come from. Is this actually you speaking there, or is this just something that you're spooling like a tape? Is this something that was said to you when you were little, or that you heard other people say about other people? Again, remember, I talked about the manipulation, propaganda, and the control of sort of masses through sort of manipulating how information is being distributed and channeled, and your ego does the same thing. So what you're seeing in the collective here, what you're seeing in politics and so forth, this is nothing but a reflection of your own ego. Your ego does it too. Find out, where you are misusing, your own ego's narrative, your own story for power, maybe for manipulation, for feeling superior, and it's all understandable. So you don't really have to beat yourself up over it, because that would just feed that critical inner voice again. You just don't want to feel too special. Allow this to humble you a bit and say, well, dang, we all have this critical inner voice. And if I believe in it, okay, then I'm just going to do what everybody else is doing. So I'm just, part of this collective matrix here, okay? So don't take in anything unchecked. And ask yourself, what are you trying to prove? What are you trying to justify? with this. And if it's not about you, and you're seeing other people do this, then have compassion, because most likely if they're acting completely rude or, sort of defensive or even aggressive, that's what they're hearing. They're hearing these critical inner voices, and they're trying to defend or justify or, sort of make their case, because the third chakra is like really involved in this. Okay. Socially, in regards to your relationships or even in regards to your business, like we've discussed last week, it's about finding new approaches. And, there's a really cool energy coming in here this week, even though the barometer's on red. So this, the energy barometer is measuring the intensity level, not necessarily the content. So it's actually a really, really good week to come up with new marketing strategies, to come up with, sort of new approaches in your relationship, in your parenting. Okay, I mentioned this before. Your kids are going to be on your nerves. Trust me, your partner is going to be on your nerves because everybody's just totally reactive. Okay, so stop buying into this and stop going into your own, sort of story here. Be open for new approaches, for new strategies. Okay, this is really a good time to mature them. Okay, and keep correcting. Keep connecting, discuss things, ask for feedback. It's a really good time also for short trips, really good time for adventure, actually. It's sort of surprising adventure and meeting new people. And some of you may actually, meet someone, that you're going to want to spend the rest of your life together with. And again, this is also an agreement, if you will, so, and a new approach. Just remember here, everything that you experience is real, but that doesn't mean that everything is true. Okay, so learn to make conscious decisions through discernment and through like filtering out all these different voices from your childhood. That sound like your great grandmother or your first great teacher or your dad, or whatever, the principal, whatever, influenced you in your childhood growing up. Spiritually, again here, the higher the vibratory rate of our sort of, or the density level, the more positive this is actually going to play out for you. So spiritually, this is actually a time for really deep spiritual reconciliation. These last 2 weeks here in October is very beautiful, actually. There's a lot of redeeming energy, redeeming quality in this time, to really go in and see, how you've misused your own power and face, these shadow parts. And for many of you, it's not really that you've been evil or mean or, dark. It's more like that there are aspects of yourselves. I call those the shadow men. Look this up on the YouTube channel. The shadow man concept, this is the part in us that has to do things that need to be done, that has to muscle through sometimes, that has to make compromises. And this can also lead to, us not being congruent with ourselves and rejecting parts of ourselves. So it's a time for redeeming that part. It's a time for reconciling with this part in you. Also understand that this can bring up the depth of your addictive structure, like really, really big. And, I'm expecting, a lot of people having relapses, a lot of people, going to the outer boundaries of what their addiction, especially in regards to substance addiction, what it can hold, okay? If you are the loved one of a person who's addictive to substances, brace yourself and have compassion. Okay, understand that it is, the search for God. It is the search for deep, deep inner connection, spiritual inner connection, that drives a person into these like really self-destructive, sort of behavior. So it's not just the substances, but the substances are usually more obvious for us because they're, they lead to death ultimately. It's also the behaviors So you guys know what I'm referring to, because all of you, have somewhere deep down an ego addiction, and this is why we hear at transCODES, and especially with the Sacred Self-Healing course, where I've, basically translated, so the principles of recovery to how to transcend your ego. Okay. So see that this is a great opportunity for you to heal this, to redeem this part in you. And energetically, for those of you who are active energy workers or want to learn how to become active energy workers and active energy healers, work on all the aspects that you already know, or that are coming forward here in this time, that have to do with externalizing your power. Where are you still externalizing your power? Whether it can be spirit guides, it can be, expecting your partner to do something for you, or, sort of waiting for the universe to do something for you. Those are all externalizations, guys. Okay? You need to work on those. Those of you who have a very strong sort of visual or etheric perception, you guys gonna, and you probably already have, continue to see a lot of stuff here. You're going to have more dreams, deeper visions, lucid dreaming. And all I can say is that, you know this about us. We teach those things, but in the energy updates, I'm not really sort of publicizing this for the known reasons. There's a lot of etheric entities that are getting very rolled up right now, which is going to make them feel more active than normal. So you're probably going to feel a little more etheric activity there from the dark forces, or let's just call them entities. So my suggestion for you is familiarize yourself with your etheric self. Know what your talents are, know what you can do, and learn how to stand your ground etherically. Not everything is an attack that comes in from the outside, so you also need to learn to discern. But in the beginning, it's probably the best to assume that everything is an attack, and that it's not benign. There are some supporting energies as well. And when you become better at discerning them, you will know. You'll get a very clear inner signal. But for as long as you have all these blind spots and narratives and misuse of your own power, you're going to get tricked into your ego traps, okay? And you're going to get offered things, and that make you feel special, that make you feel more powerful in the etheric, and you got to be careful with those things, all right? So on the energetic level as well, work on your responsiveness, and understand that, like being consolidated, being centered, being grounded, allows you to have a choice, because it gives you more time to respond. You're actually learning how to slow down time. Okay, so focus on consolidating your energies. And the self-coaching tip for this week are these 3 questions here. The first one is more like a statement. Remember this: I energize what I defend or what I justify. That is it. And this is like your little stories and your little addictions. If you defend them or if you justify them, you're energizing them. All right? And whose voice am I listening to? What is it actually inside of you that is controlling you? Okay? Become more aware of it, even if you just sort of start keeping a list, writing it down. That's fine. That's already a step into discernment. And what is my ego's narrative? That I have to be somebody, that I have to be like somebody else, that I'm not good enough, that I'm always a victim, that I'm so special, that I'm like powerless. What is your ego's narrative? Thank you guys. Thank you for being Patreon subscribers and supporting transCODES this way, and allowing me to make these really detailed videos. Thank you to all heart warriors who trusted enough, to go into this sort of 90-day boot camp with us here. And if you're interested in this, check this out on the transCODES website. Every month we have 1 or 2 spots available for going through this journey with you, like pretty much, you know, every day, you know, not like you have to show up anywhere every day, but, you know, for 3 months straight. It's a very intense but very effective self-transformation that becomes possible through that. Thank you, everybody. Love you guys, and hope to see you soon.